Welcome back to the Shared Practices podcast. I'm Caitlin Embree, and I have here with me Dr. Andrew Clingan. Welcome back, Andrew.
Hey, Caitlin.
So today we're coming to you guys live from the ugly duckling phase that Dr. Andrew Clingan is currently living in. I told him a lot of times we have dentists on kind of as they're looking ahead at growing into a group practice. That's part of the vision, but it's a little bit further down the road. And then sometimes we have them on after they've successfully grown to a profitable group and they've got a full-time associate and the right amount of hygienists and they're kind of where they wanted to be and looking at what's next. It's rare that we get to talk to somebody kind of right in the middle of those growing pains and that transition and what we call the ugly duckling phase. So I asked him to come on today and just kind of chat with us about what this experience has been like, recently recruiting an associate, onboarding an associate on a part-time basis. So Andrew, I'm going to let you take it from here. Give us a quick catch up on your practice itself. You've been on before, you've told
Sure.
us your journey, but a quick synopsis and then kind of what this last 6 months has been like for you.
Just real fast. Yeah, been a practice owner for 2.5 years, stepped into a practice that was underperforming by quite a bit and just went in as a new grad, wasn't doing a lot of things perfect, but just changing a few things. We doubled that practice in a year, right? That story's been well documented. Another year and a half later, going on towards year 3 of practice ownership, we've just kind of continued to be growing. And what's interesting about practice management, Caitlin, and growing a dental practice, there's so many levers to turn, right? And I'm the kind of personality that it'd probably be good to go, hey, here's the things we're going to focus on. But I just look at it and I go, well, no, let's just do it all better. Like, let's just do it all right. And that's where Caitlin helps me out sometimes and helps me get a little bit more focused so we can concentrate our efforts. But over the last year and a half, I kind of lived in this like almost super solo period for a little while, not entirely, but it's kind of sort of where I was doing a lot of production myself, checking 3 hygiene. Um, and yeah, then the plan for me has always been to grow to a group. And so seeing a lot of growth numerically. Last year, we collected probably almost 3x what it was doing before I took over. Not quite, but close. And so, by all means of success, like we're killing it, right? Everything's good. But the journey to get there has not always been easy. And even the journey in growing has been definitely a challenge at times with team and patient flow and retention and things like that. And so, had a big year last year, brought on a part-time associate. So we're up to 6 doctor days now, and we're hovering right at like 11 to 12 hygiene days. And so we're in this point where, yeah, we're growing, things are good, but definitely a little bit of an ugly duckling face. And believe it or not, not quite as much financially as you would think, but in terms of like patient flow, it's a little bit ugly duckling. Systems, team, there's all these things that are upstream of the finances, if that makes sense. And so, Caitlin, I'm just going to let you kind of poke wherever you want to go, and we'll take
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of I joke that George says this, I say this, like when you add the associate, things break. And let's just plan on that. And so I always like to share with the audience what different things have shown up. And you mentioned it right there. Let's talk systems. I know that the associate that joined they have a different clinical skill set than you
Sure.
do. In most cases, the associate is bringing something new, not always. It's either the associate's bringing a new procedure that we didn't used to do, or they're allowing for the owner to do more of a
Mm,
procedure that they didn't used to do
exactly.
because the associate's freeing up time. So when you say systems, one of the things that stands out to me about your practice, and I think it's super common and something to plan for in your own for our listeners, is preparing your team for those sequences and those treatment plans. So talk to us about kind of how that felt in real time those first couple of days when your associate was doing exams and all of a sudden team needed to know what those codes were and how to talk about that, right?
Sure. I mean, the one example is like I do some surgery and place some implants, but my associate does more than me, and they do like some overdentures and stuff. We're not doing like full arch, all on
Right.
floor or anything, and all of a sudden, like we're able to offer patients options for like overdentures, right?
Yeah.
And my team had never seen me present treatment for $15,000,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe a few times. I'm getting into some bigger fix pros stuff. I'm not quite into full mouth rehab yet, but I'm going down that journey a little bit. So they've seen me do some bigger cases, but that's like 2 or 3 times a year. And all of a sudden, we're having conversations with people in the operatory about what it looks like to get them their new set of teeth. And I'll just be honest with you, Caitlin, we have lost like 2 or 3 very big cases because we weren't ready for that as a
Mhm.
practice, you know? And that stings. You're like, "Ooh, that was a big one." But that's also the kind of interesting thing. I think the SP philosophy that we preach to our coaching clients here is very much a patient flow thing. It's a numbers thing. You don't have to have a doctor with an advanced skill set in there
Mhm.
to be successful. Um, where I am in my journey is that's how I run my practice, but I am very more clinical probably than George and some of those other guys ever did, right? And so when you do that, you can kind of cover up some hiccups in these other areas. And that's what's happened in our practice thus far. Even though we weren't ready with systems, my production and what I'm able to do is really creeping up. This person has a specific skill set. And so it's allowed us the transition financially has not been terrible because
Mhm.
we've kind of like
Outproduced your problems.
exactly, we've outproduced our problems and covered some we had a record month in January, but I'm seeing all these other things and I'm like, "Okay, this is not sustainable in this area. Here's how we have to fix this." And so, yeah, I mean, one was the system and presenting bigger things. That was definitely one.
So yeah, and my advice, kind of as we were preparing for the associate to join us, but was to kind of practice this and get these codes ready. But you don't feel it till it's real, and I think sometimes you do have to feel the hurt of like, oh, we lost that one because it was clear we weren't ready, and then it was, oh, I see what we're talking about now. Yeah, we need a meeting on this, and so how you and I mitigated that was I said, okay, we need to get together with the associate. What are these various like packages of offerings that he's going to be bringing to the table? What codes does that include? And let's get our office manager, first of all, up to speed on that so she's confident. And then she can go and take that to the entire, anyone who's presenting treatment and go,
Yeah.
okay, when he says that, it means this treatment plan. When he says this, it means this. And I always say, I'm a little jealous of admin team members that work for like specialty practices because I've never worked for a specialty practice, so I
They
romanticize
have
it in
like
my
10
mind.
codes they have
Yeah,
to
they have like 10
memorize.
codes and they probably just sound like experts and they only have to look up like these certain things and I'm sure there's way more
Meanwhile,
to that than I
yeah,
know. But
our poor front desker over
yeah.
here having to memorize like 100 different codes.
Exactly, and that's
Yeah.
I like to give that perspective to my dentist because, it's true, we're expected to know the ins and outs of how all these codes are gonna show up for them on a treatment plan and a ledger and in the chair and scheduling. Then you add new ones with the associate, and it's never ending for the front office,
Can
and
I
not
just be honest, Caitlin?
of course, always.
I'm terrible at, like, remembering numbers, like, I struggle to remember my wife's birthday sometimes and her phone number,
Mhm.
and so I'm terrible with codes, like, my office manager will rattle off a code, and it's like the Crown
Well,
code or SRP code, I'm like, "Which one is that
yeah,
again?"
I don't expect dentists to know codes
No, I
either,
mean,
by the way,
I
but
couldn't tell you a periodic right now, I really couldn't.
okay. Well, that's okay. You don't have to. You just have to be able to perform them.
Exactly.
But all this to say, that's how the language is being spoken to insurance and billing, right? So it's bridging that gap. So that's where a meeting between the doctors and the admin team is important because doctors are saying, well, this is the description of the treatment I'm recommending. Let's dust off the old code book, bring it up online, and let's kind of put these procedures together. And so it's easier moving forward. There's bundled codes. And so
Yeah.
you can quickly capture that because what happens is, and I was chatting with your OM about this on a call. It's like, okay, if we've got this large case, we've got an overdenture, but we're not ready in the moment to present that treatment plan. Either the patient's leaving without a treatment plan whatsoever, and like we'll email you, we'll call you. We can talk on whether we think that's good for case acceptance. Spoil alert, it's not. Or,
We'll let you know.
the best thing that you can do is bring them back and have them on the schedule for a consult, so you have
Yeah.
another opportunity to present this. But in the ideal scenario, you can put together a treatment plan while the patient's still here for that first time in that exam and their
Mhm.
head is still in it. And it might take you a couple minutes, but obviously we can't keep the patient waiting here for 20, 30 minutes on
Sure,
a treatment plan.
sure.
So,
Yeah, I mean, and here's, the interesting thing. And once again, this is what I love about dentistry. There's just so many areas to focus in on and get better at.
yeah.
we always talk about like the timing of an associate and how big of an ugly duckling phase it's going to be. A lot of that depends. Like you can cover up some stuff if you're better in some of these areas. You don't need as much new patient or as much patient flow. If you're not as good in that, you're going to need more exams and at bats and patient flow.
Right.
And that's really so. I'm a guy who's really big on that, and so my big focus has been how many exams is he getting? How's he doing in these exams? How was he
Mm,
working with the hygienist? Let's just be
mm,
real too. Like if you're an owner doc and you're halfway good and you're growing your practice, let's just be real. Like you're the guy or the girl right there, right? Like everything hinges on you. Your team loves working for you. Whoever you bring in is not going to step into those shoes, no matter how talented of a doctor they are. Okay. And so I very early got on like the team going, oh man, like their exam's different. And what they're really saying is it's not yours. It's not as, and I've known these patients for a few years, right? I am a little bit more streamlined. I've worked with these hygienists. I know which ones are good at recommending certain things and which ones need some work, right? And so a lot of it too is just prepping the patient and not prepping the patient, but prepping the team to go, hey, here's what it's like. And it's hard it's easy just to go in and wing it and have some swagger as a doctor and get patients to say yes. It's hard to like really calibrate your team and go, here's how we're going to diagnose this. Here's how we're going to talk about it.
right.
Here's how you're going to come in to do your exam. And then here's how the front desk is going to do this. And all these things are creating this micro trust with patients along the way. That's the stuff that nobody really thinks about, right? Is how are you talking to this associate and your team about learning to work
Mhm.
together?
Mhm. So, how has it been with your team? What has been some of those growing pains? If you don't mind sharing, whether it's the hygiene exams or it's front office verbiage about the associate, or things you've heard in your own chair, or assistants coming in talking to you about something. Like I always try to warn on this, and I think again, it's one of those things they look at me like, I don't really know what you're talking about," and then a couple of months after the associate's there, they go, "Oh, yeah, we are this team member is concerned about the treatment plans and all that." So what have you kind of real life experienced?
My associate and I are a great team and a great fit, meaning like my strengths are actually some of their weaknesses, and their weaknesses are and my weaknesses are their strengths, which is a great thing. But from the team standpoint, it's like, oh, well, so and so doesn't do a quadrant of fillings as fast and as smooth as you have. Yeah, but have you taken a tooth out with me lately versus them?
Right, there you go, yeah.
It takes me 40 minutes to take a tooth out. My associate had two wisdom teeth out in 5 minutes yesterday,
Right,
right?
right.
And so it's just different. And anytime it's different, you have to lead through that. You have to prepare the team. The personalities are different. Some people are just naturally better at this. Some people are naturally better at other things. And so that's been a little bit of like struggle is like schedule and realizing like, okay, how do we schedule for two doctors? Because this doctor takes longer for this and this doctor takes longer for that. If you've had somebody for a long time and you have seasoned experienced doctors, at some point it should take X number of minutes for a crown, X number of minutes for an implant extraction, so on and so forth. But early on, there's going to be a gap there, and that's normal. And you just have to recognize that for 3 to 6 months, I mean, even if this person is very experienced in restorative and you as the doctor are as well, they've never done it with your equipment and your assistants and all these things. And so you just have to prep your team. Like you said, things are going to break some. That's been the biggest thing that we've seen. Part of the way you remedy that is, you give them your best assistants. um, it was actually
Absolutely.
it was actually kind of funny. I mean, I told before we got started, I have 3 really good assistants. I have one who's 2 have been with me for well over a year, who are pretty dialed. One who's been with us for just short of 6 months, and she's progressing quickly. Well, guess what? The 2 that I've been working with for the years been the one with the associate. And when that started, they're like, I don't want to do this, Dr. Clingan. I finally gotten good at working with you. We're smooth. I'm like, yeah, we are. And it's actually going to suck a little bit because you're right. Like, we just know each other. We don't have to communicate as much. It's that
Right.
song and dance is really nice as a dentist when you have an associate who's reading your mind, knows how you do things. I was like,
An
but
assistant, yeah.
that's like the job, right? It's your job is to set that associate up for success, right? And then it's a unique responsibility too. For me now, I get more one-on-one time with my assistant who's the least tenured. And this assistant is still good, but guess what's happened to that assistant's growth in the last month? Me and my OM were just talking about her last night. We're like, oh, wow, she's just really starting to come. I'm like, yeah, because you as the doctor spending a lot more one-on-one time with that person. And guess what? In dentistry, and I'd love to talk about this next, hardest thing is building a team. And let's be real, a front office, especially an assistant position, is not always the position you're going to have somebody in for 20 years, right? That's very often a transitory position. And so it's always got to be this next man up mentality. Out of my 3 assistants, I have one who starts dental school in 6 months. We're thrilled for him. Okay. Hopefully we'll get him back one day as an associate. I have one who is going to start doing our hygiene program in Alabama. And so her attention is going to be split between hygiene assisting. And then I have my newest one. And so guess what I'm doing? This newest one right now, she's getting geared up. She's going to become
She's gonna be your A. She's
our
gonna be
most
your
tenured
go-to.
position. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And you're explaining to your team it's an opportunity, and so you're
That's all it
in
is.
this ugly duckling phase, it's a growth for your practice, but it's a growth for your team, and you're sharing that vision with them often, right? Where you're saying like, "Hey, this is my goal. We're going to be adding 2 doctor days and then eventually another 2 doctor days, and this is the plan." And so be prepared to grow and stretch, and all of you will have growing pains as well. My goal for you guys is that you stay with me as long as your dental career allows, but if not, I want you to go to the next practice better than you started here. And part of that is me pushing you. So it feels like, whoa, why am I assisting the associate? Because you're actually the most skilled to do so, and that makes the most sense for everyone's success. And you can kind of show them the ropes. So I wholeheartedly agree with putting one of your A assistants with that associate in the beginning to kind of ease that transition.
Absolutely. And really like the principle behind all this is, I mean, let's just get into the team thing for a second,
Yeah.
right? I mean, my experience in growing through the early duckling phase has been the team's been the hardest thing. It's not been case acceptance. It's not been getting new patients. It's been a little bit of patient retention, but that was because of the DNA of my practice when I took over. It's been team. It's growing them. And so you don't want to bring in this associate and you want to keep their book full and you're spending all this extra money and the team is just fumbling because at the end of the day, we're only as good as our weakest link and you can be the best doctor in the back, but if the front desk drops the ball, patients lose trust in your ability to provide care for them. Once again, they don't know how good your margins are. They just know if the person at the front desk was fumbling over their words the whole time, or if there's even someone at the front desk when the hygienist went to check them out. So this has been the area that's challenged me most as a leader in the last 12 months. Caitlin knows all the details behind this. We're going to spare you some of the gory details on the podcast, but this is the stuff that if you're trying to grow to a group and make a practice less dependent on you is you have to empower people and you have to delegate and you have to push them. And that sounds easy and fun and like sexy to say it on like a leadership podcast. In
Right.
reality, it's hard and it's messy and people are sometimes motivated and not. What I've found, the only way you're going to have a shot in today's hiring environment, because people do not stay at jobs as long as they used to. Everybody wants to work remote from home, right? You can't do that in dentistry. The only shot you have is to say, we're going to be an expert in the development of people here. That's the philosophy I've taken on. And that takes a lot of work. People are going to outgrow positions. Sure, some will leave you. But if you get the reputation of we're people who develop, you're always going to do okay. And really where I go into that is I look at people and I go, what lights them up? What are they good at? And if it's a certain thing, I try to pour gasoline on that and kind of set the vision for them of, hey, this is what it looks like to grow. Like when you do more, you help the practice be able to afford to pay you more, right? We're adding in an investment, a 401k plan this quarter. And I'm like, hey, that's due to the growth we've had, guys. Hey, this assistant's about to become a hygienist because she's grown. Guess what? That's creating more value for one of you guys to step up and take some of the responsibilities she's been doing, and you get paid more. And so I'm just constantly trying to set the vision for people. Some people grasp onto it, some don't. And then you have to be willing to like kind of act accordingly, right? If that's
Right.
in tune to encourage and push, or if that's, graciously setting some people free.
Absolutely. And I think one kind of tangible detail that I'd like to go down is related to team, and it is related to developing your office manager. And this
Sure.
is a really relatable topic that is going to fit into place for anyone who's transitioning to a group is when you are adding that associate and going to 3 to 4 hygienists, an office manager starts to make more sense, and you get to a place where you have to have them at a certain point in your growth process. And so one of the things you really challenged yourself related to team is knowing you can't do it all. You've always had an OM who has helped you operationally, been kind of ready to support, ready to lead, but you wanted to get your footing in the beginning. You wanted to get your leadership reps in and know your practice, which I think is smart. But now in these last kinda 6 to 12 months, you've seen, like, you can't do it all,
No.
and you need to delegate, which is a buzzword, and it's easier said than done. So, I'm kind of thinking of just recently the commitment you made to really leaning into your office manager, elevating her in front of the team, letting go of some of the stuff you used to want your hands on. Talk to us a little bit about that. I think I wanna commend you too for the decision you allowed her to make with parting ways with a team member maybe
Yeah.
earlier than you would've.
Yeah. There's a lot I could talk about here, and I quite often I think back to things that George or Alex would say on the podcast back in the day about like, hey, you can read every leadership book on the planet, but nothing makes any sort of substitute for a real world experience. And that's been my story, honestly. I knew a lot about practice management coming into this. I felt like I was a good leader. I found that I have like blind spots. And one of my biggest things is I see the best in people, and sometimes to the detriment of like, I'm afraid to enforce. I give people too many chances. Sometimes I want more for them than they want for themselves. And so that's something I had to really grow through last year. I had some team members who were underperforming that I probably let hang around too long, despite my office manager telling me it's probably time. And so I just made a commitment this year because I'll be honest, Caitlin, last year was a pretty hard year for me. We grew a lot as a practice, but I was taking on a ton of clinical work and a ton of leadership work. And, all's good. If you're working 150% all the time, everything's good until it's not. And in the fall, man, I had some real breaking points where I was like, I can't do this for the next 10 years, right? I'll retire early, right? And go do something else. And so I had to really sit down and go, hey, what's sustainable growing moving forward? And a lot of our success the first 2 years has been due to I'm a talented person and my office manager is an insanely talented person. So we both carried a lot on our backs. Now we have a great team around us too. Don't get me wrong, but it's been a lot of Andrew and Michelle pushing the ball forward and doing more and more. And what we've seen as we've grown is like our plates were full. We couldn't do more. I couldn't do more because I couldn't delegate to her, and she couldn't do more because she couldn't delegate to other people. And so when we sat down at the beginning of the year, our number one goal this year was to create what we called a culture of leadership in our practice where people were self accountable and self motivated. And if they didn't do something, we weren't going to step in and do it and fix it for them, right? Like we were going to coach them on it. And ultimately, if they didn't, then yeah. And so that we made that commitment in January. At the very first of January, at the end of January, we had a new team member coming in who wasn't living up to the core values we set. And me, typically, I was sitting there like, okay, I'm going to sit him down, give him one more chance. And I remember my office manager just looked at me and she said, I've seen all I need to see.
So powerful.
And so I was like,
And
you
you
know
had a
what?
choice to make because
Yeah,
the old Andrew would have gone, "Let's give him one more
let's just try. It
try."
comes from a good place.
Right, right. Yeah.
But no, I was just like, Andrew, you literally sat down with her 3 weeks ago and said, I want you to own more of this. I got to give this to you. I can't be part-time office manager and full-time and a half clinician and be a sane person and a good husband and good friend outside this
Mhm.
place. And so I just said, all right, I'm going to trust you. And so I pulled the person in, and I just told him, hey, here's the decision we've made. And guess what? My office manager stepped up after that too.
Well, right, because when you give the right OM the decisions, you also give them the outcomes and they take ownership of those outcomes. And if they can bridge the gap and they can hold down everything while they look for somebody else and walk the talk, then you have no choice but to really lean in and go, okay, I'm going to trust you here. And if it doesn't work, we're going to learn from it. But let them learn from it if it was the wrong call. Because how are they going to learn if you just stop them along the way every time?
And I'm going to give people a little bit more of a peek behind the curtain too. And I'm going to be just a little bit hard on my OM for a second. My OM has been in dentistry for so long, she can do just about everything except the dentist job. Not
Yeah,
just about, she can.
she's a hygienist. She can
She's a high
assist. So she
she
can
knows. She probably
yeah.
could prep a tooth if she had to,
Yeah.
like, truth be told. And she's very competent and a hard worker. And so what that creates in that kind of personality, and I'm the same person, is, "Oh, I'll just do it. Nobody can do it as well as me." Right? And so one thing I've pushed her on is, even though we've had to make some hard decisions at the front, some more responsibilities fall on hers, we're getting like laser focused on what things are coming off her plate.
Right.
Even to the point this week, I have a book that I like semi. It's called Buy Back Your Time. It's about
Mhm.
delegation and like virtual assistants. And there's some things I like and things I don't. But he has a great exercise. It's called a time and energy audit. And
Uh-huh.
my
Yes.
my OM every week, because she's in person about 75% of the time, remote's 25% of the time. And ever since she's been partly remote, she's been very dedicated to me on like, "Hey, I want you to know what I'm doing," which is great. I trust her anyways, but she just goes above and beyond. So I took that email, fed it into AI and fed in the time and energy audit and filled out her stuff. And guess what her homework is this weekend? She's rating time and energy on all the tasks she's doing. And guess what? If they're $15 an hour task, her responsibility is going to be try to get them off her plate in the
That's
next 30
right.
to 60 days.
That's
If
right.
they're like big drains on energy, like we only have so much
Mhm.
willpower, mental power every day. A part of her stepping up and doing more of this is also empowering others. And so
Mhm.
I look at the assistants that I talked about and how they're stepping in to help administratively. And so we're working really hard to build this
Mhm.
culture, like we said, of leadership. And it's not easy. You hit bumps in the road. We got all fired up about this. And then, yeah, we had to let a team member go. And then we had
Right.
some issues with another admin person. But it's just kinda like, "Hey, we're gonna stick to what we said." Like, there might be some bumps in the road, but I'm working really hard as a leader not to revert to, like, this, because the way I used to act, I'll just be honest with you, Caitlin, it came from a place of fear of, "I'm gonna lose people. I'm not gonna be able to operate." And, yeah, I was a young owner, and I had not quite had time to weather some storms and see that it's gonna be okay on the other side, and I acted like that a lot. I was afraid to step up and be a leader and really challenge people, right? It's easy for me to say, "Hey, my core values are we get better all the time, and I want to create this accountability culture." And then I'm not willing to hold up my end of the bargain and help coach somebody when they inevitably get it wrong, because we're going to sometimes.
And I think as we grow into group practices, you start to develop team members where they are at this higher caliber. It's the office manager, it's your lead assistant, your lead hygienist. And I'm, as the coach, starting to have these conversations to your point, and I had this with your OM of, is that the highest and best use of your time? And that's a question I'm finding myself asking often to these leaders and practices is you're now at a caliber, at a compensation rate where we need to be very careful about this, right? Of what is the highest and best use of your time. And so that goes perfectly with that exercise and gives you something tangible. Like, how do we actually leverage this? So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I tell her all the time, I was like, "Your job is not to be the most highly compensated insurance coordinator in the state of
Mm.
Alabama."
We're being tough on her. She's going to listen to this and
We
go,
are.
come on.
But it's because, once again, she takes a lot of pride and we do things right at our, like, we were just talking about this, like, we're trying to solve this front desk equation, and it's crazy with, like, what typical wages were and what people are coming in asking for. And she said, "To be honest, Dr. Klingon, like, a lot of this is harder because we ask a lot from our front desk." And she's like, "But you're also willing to invest in your team. You're not just going, oh, it's somewhat okay, and then if we don't estimate it right, insurance won't pay and we charge the patient." Like, we're trying to do it the right way, so it's a little bit harder sometimes. And so I couldn't, it's easy to poke at my OM and be hard on her here and there sometimes, but couldn't do it without her, right? And what it is she has the same shared vision that I do. When I sat down
Right.
with her 2.5 years ago, I said, "Here's what I'm trying to do." And she's like, "I'm on board." Like, why she chose to hitch her wagon, that's a very Southern saying, I don't know why I said that. Why she chose to hitch her wagon to some freshly graduated dentist from dental school, and I still sometimes ask why, but I think it's because she saw the vision and she said, "That's what I wanna be a part of." And so that's what we try to drive for the practice is, "Hey, guys, we're trying to do this at a high level." And if you go and say all that, but then you're not willing to back up your words and hold people accountable or let things go, guess what? People lose respect for you. And that's when people start to kind of coast and, you know, and so the culture of your place can erode really fast.
I hope this was a good insight for folks on kind of what that transition to group ugly duckling phase can feel like in real life, and just kind of, yeah, peek behind the curtain, as you said. And I know we're gonna get you back on when things have grown even further, 6 to 12 to 18 months from now, and we'll have new lessons for everyone at that point. But I really appreciate you hitching your wagon to shared practices and, sharing along the journey and being vulnerable.
Absolutely. I'm gonna hold that to you. You have to put that in your repertoire and your vocab now,
You
Caitlin.
know, I was hardly shocked by it, and I think it's because I speak with offices all around the country, so I have so many
You're
from the
used to it.
South, so I'm just used to all these various sayings from up north, from the South, from the Midwest. So I'm a little bit more
Uh,
accustomed to it, but, no, we can all hear your Southern hospitality in your accent, which I
yeah,
maybe some people think I have the accent, but I'm from the Pacific Northwest, so you and I are,
a little bit.
yeah, a little bit different parts of the country here.
Part of it.
Um,
Part of it.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on today. Yeah. I mean, I think in general, this is something that we could probably do a part two on very soon. But this is just a part of growth. Like, we didn't even get into half of the ugly duckling things that we want to see. And most of what we were talking about, I would say, are growth pains. And we didn't even get into like the financial implications and things like that. But quite often, as a practice owner, I find myself wishing for when this is optimized or that's optimized, when in reality, this sounds like a little corny, but it's true. Like, a lot of it's in the journey. A lot of the fun is figuring this out along the way. We Last night my OM and I were locking up and we looked around, we're talking about, oh, this is such a headache, this is such a headache. And I just stopped her and I said, what were we doing 2 years ago?
Right.
What did this place look like?
As long as your problems are changing
Yeah.
is
And
what I
she was
like to
like,
say.
oh my goodness. Like, yeah, it's night
We've
and
come
day.
so far. Yeah.
And that's enough to get me up every day and go and
Mhm.
keep doing it. So, yeah,
Mhm.
this has been fun. We'll find the time to kind of keep going down this topic down the road because there's a lot to share here.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone listening who feels like, they want some help with their own practice, feel free to reach out to me, Caitlin at sharedpractices.com, or go to our website and schedule up a discovery call with us.
Sounds great.
And yeah, we'll see you all next time on the Shared Practices podcast.
Resonate.